Well, what I'd say as someone who worked at the Department of Health and Human Services, there's no question from a public health perspective, the best smoking is not starting smoking, whether that's with regular cigarette use or with e-cigarettes or with heated tobacco, which seems to be the new focus of Philip Morris and Altria going forward.
Heated tobacco. We just had Dr. Scott Gottlieb on who said, yeah, it doesn't look quite as bad as actually burning the tobacco, but there probably are long-term health risks with that. And it just, you know, you take Juul, it was probably bad for you, but it might help you get off tobacco. It's crazy.
The problem is they were marketing it to kids and using flavors. What I mean. They weren't marketing it and using it as
but if you weren't trying to get off something in the first place, and then why would you, I don't know why you try to start a nicotine addiction if you don't have one. None of it makes any sense to me, Chris. But so what's the bottom line here, do you think, with the Juul business, which for a lot of investors, I think, with cannabis and everything else, they saw this Juul thing and they want it in, and I think the assets values are down 50% at this point for across the board. No.
Yeah, I think there's no question this has hurt the valuations of the companies going forward. What you've seen and what we knew all along, and when I was talking to investors after I left the department in January to join Raymond James, was that, look, you're going to see increased regulations on e-cigarettes, period. You have a youth epidemic across this country. You have an entity that literally targeted kids, and they used the excuse of, well, there are some kids that are smoking cigarettes, and this is better for them, without having FDA approval to say this is a smoking cessation tool. And they went out, targeted these kids, and at some point that was going to catch up to them. And what we saw was, with the youth tobacco studies saying that more than 25% of kids have used an e-cigarette in the last 30 days. Those are kids that will admit to using it. There is an epidemic going on, and eventually you're going to see politicians step in and try to say this is a step too far. And when Melania Trump weighed in with the president a couple weeks ago, expressing her concerns, and you saw the Oval Office meeting where the president said he was going to move forward with banning flavored e-cigarettes, that was a game changer.
I just wonder, what would you recommend for the people that are making decisions on all these things right now, the manufacturers, et cetera? What would you recommend that their path forward should be?
I mean, I think you have to look at what the right public health perspective is. You understand that we're in a very different universe than whenever you were establishing original tobacco and cigarette use decades and decades ago. We're in a different world. And in today's world, you have to be responsible corporate citizens. And as part of that, you can't do anything that's going to result in increased use among kids. And if you're targeting kids, and even if you try to say roundabout publicly that you're not, that's a problem. Second, this is a perfect example of how you can hire everybody and their brother in D.C. to lobby for you, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And in this instance, they had hired lots of former Trump administration officials, lots of former Bush administration officials, thinking they'd put up a lobbying firewall in D.C. But the reality is the public health concerns from the teen tobacco use, as well as this additional sicknesses we're now seeing from the use of mostly probably not Juul pods, with all frankness, is something that can overwhelm that.
I mean, do you have a high degree of confidence that there's not something long-term that we don't even know about that could result in there being major litigation down the road for people that are already addicted to Juul?
I suspect that there will be litigation down the road based on their marketing practices and claims that they made, and that is something that people should have been expecting from the very beginning. This is one of those freight trains that everyone should have saw coming, but the dramatic increase in usage and the thought that, well, if we get kids on it early on, they'll continue throughout their lives, outweighed investors' perspective and looking at the regulatory threats as well as the potential litigation threats going forward.